excited to be here with Dr. Neal Barnard, and I have to give a full rundown introduction because you're really a profound person in the plant-based movement and health and wellness for America.
Well,
so, you come from a small place, Fargo, North Dakota, which would be unknown if it wasn't for the iconic movie.
Right. I guess that's the truth.
So you really did grow up in the heartland of America on the meat and potatoes diet.
Right.
And you came from a family of physicians, so I assume that kind of is what instigated you to pursue studying science and medicine?
My dad was a doctor, but he didn't start out that way. He started out in the cattle business.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. And he was raising cattle, and his father, and as far back as I could trace. But the thing is, my dad hated raising cattle. And so he went to medical school and became the diabetes expert for Fargo and eastern North Dakota.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So
I've seen kind of both sides of it.
Yeah, I'm going to say, what was it about the cattle industry that really drove your father to leave the family business and take up medicine?
There's a lot to not like about it, I have to say. And when I was a kid, I actually drove cattle to slaughter myself.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a brutal childhood experience.
It is, and you could see a person wanting to get out of it. But I have to say, at the same time, my father was practicing a kind of medicine that's not what I'm doing. It was, the person's got diabetes, well, you got to start medication, and the medications only work so much, so you're fighting a losing battle. And I have to say, all the time I was growing up, the last thing I wanted to do was to get involved in that kind of practice. So, but, as things move along, you start to change your path.
So, George Washington University, studying psychiatry, so you were drawn to the study of the mind.
Exactly.
But then how did that lead you to the study of the body and nutrition?
Yeah, well, in medical school, you spend 4 years doing general medical studies, then I did a year of internship. And after that, I did an extra residency all in psychiatry and neurology, because that's what I was really interested in. But as time went on, I started to realize that we needed to change medicine more profoundly, not wait till diseases just came into the emergency room door. We needed to do what we could to prevent them. And so I started the physicians committee.
I think that's a crazy idea, preventative medicine.
Yeah. Well,
Wait, but who's going to be making money then?
You said it. But anyway, to try to bring that kind of advocacy forward, I started the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And the idea was it would be a committee of a small group of doctors who would argue for just what you're saying, that let's prevent the heart attack, prevent the cancer if we can. And in the course of that work, some foundations wanted to do diabetes work. And they said, what kind of research should we do? And they were tired of doing studies on rats and mice. And they said, what can we do that's more meaningful? So I said,
because rats and mice are a really good comparison to how the human body reacts to things, right?
You're touching on exactly the issue, that we need to study human beings, but also, instead of studying lots of complicated biochemistry, let's look at the big picture. What are the food patterns that cause diabetes to form in the first place? So I suggested, let's do studies on human beings, let's focus especially on the nutritional antecedents to diabetes, and see what we can do.
Was there a lot of backlash in these early days of, talking about nutrition and diet?
Then and even now, it wasn't the focus. There is so much money to be made in diabetes pills and insulin injections and that kind of stuff. So there's still a huge focus. And when we were saying, wait, let's focus on nutrition and maybe you can actually make this disease go away, that was kind of a new thought for a lot of people. But anyway, that led to a lot of changes for me. And I had been in the Department of Psychiatry at the George Washington University in their adjunct faculty. And so I switched into internal medicine. And since that time, I've also been doing a lot of work with the American College of Cardiology. So you set off on one life path, and then you end up in doing a lot of other things that hopefully are helpful.
And, with switching over to cardiology, you're now a fellow of the American College of Cardiology, which is, I think a great career achievement for you as well.
Well, I want to tip my hat to what they have done. A couple years ago, the president of the American College of Cardiology was a man named Kim Williams, who is a great cardiologist, and he runs cardiology at Rush University in Chicago. But he has also been such a strong advocate for saying, why are we spending so much time on procedures and medications? Let's focus on diet too. And he himself adopted a completely vegan diet, a completely plant-based diet, and he's been promoting it very heavily. So I'm so optimistic that with leaders like that, the world is going to change.
That's great. I mean, it's an exciting time where now the research and the work that's been going on, you know, that you've been part of and other doctors as well over the past like several decades is now picking up momentum and starting to get a little more recognition, I think, in the mainstream medical industry.
I think that's really true. And the kinds of calls that we have been making. Doctors need to know something about nutrition. It needs to be part of continuing medical education. It needs to be...
Is it part of the curriculum as of yet, or is it, you know, it's still a small portion of what's being talked about?
It's still a small portion. And for example, when I went to medical school at the George Washington University, when we touched on nutrition, it was just, here's the chemical structure of vitamin C. And if you don't get any vitamin C, you could get scurvy like those old sailors from 200 years ago.
But then, like, where does the vitamin C come from?
Where does it come from? And when was the last time you saw a case of scurvy? I mean, like, this is all irrelevant stuff. So we're trying to make it more relevant.
Wait, so that just leads me to, have we ever seen a case of lack of protein and protein deficiency?
Well, you know, it's great.
Because that seems to be what everybody talks about is, you know, where's your protein going to come from? Am I getting enough? I need to have enough to match my weight in grams, or, you know, there's all these different crazy formulas that people put out.
You're right. And when medical students study nutrition, if they do, it might be like, what are the essential amino acids and how much protein do you need? But you're never going to see a person with a protein deficiency if they're just eating a normal plant-based diet in sufficient variety and quantity to maintain their weight. They're going to be fine. So no, we just don't see these things. So we need to make nutrition education relevant. By relevant, I mean a person walks into the clinic with what? High cholesterol, too much body weight, their blood sugar is high, their blood pressure is high.
I mean, that just sounds like an average American. And it doesn't sound like anything extreme to me at all.
That is the average American, and they need help. And so the doctor needs to know, okay, here's what changing your diet would do for your blood sugar, for your blood pressure, for your blood cholesterol, for your body weight. And then they would have a team that would back them up. And I'm happy to tell you that we're doing exactly that. A few years ago, I set up a new clinic. It's called the Barnard Medical Center in Washington, D.C. And if you come in, we take insurance just like everybody. We have doctors and medications and everything just like everybody. But before any patient ever leaves, we say, let's look at what you're eating, because that could be the most important thing. And so we have 4 registered dietitians on staff, and we really help the patients enormously.
That's really exciting. And then here in New York, the Bellevue Hospital is starting to embrace a plant-based approach as well, which is really exciting, being the first hospital in America and now the first public institution that's starting to embrace a plant-based treatment.
I want to tip my hat to Michelle McMacken, who has really made that work. And there are so many great folks here in New York. Rob Ostfeld, who's a cardiologist at Montefiore in the Bronx, has been saying, all right, you know, we could prescribe a fair amount of Lipitor if we need to, but let's prescribe beans and rice and spinach and healthy things, because over the long run, they're more powerful.
You have also written a ton of books. And I just want to rattle off a few key titles that I think grip attention. Turn Off the Fat Genes. Dr. Neal Barnard's program of reversing diabetes. The Cancer Survivor's Guide and The Cheese Trap. I think you're writing really topical information, or, you know, these are hot topics that people are concerned about fat. Diabetes has affected everyone in their family, or they know somebody, and cancer is, you know, very prevalent. But then how do you survive after a cancer treatment, or how should nutrition be incorporated into treating cancer?
Yes.
And then the cheese trap. We're addicted to dairy and to cheese.
Aren't we? Well, not we, but many people are. I wrote that book because so many people that I would see in research studies, their lives were revolutionized by a plant-based diet. But some of them really were stuck just one food. It was cheese. They kept calling them back. And I thought, what's that about? So we discovered that cheese has actually opiates in it that make it a little bit addicting. But I want to tell you, I've just finished a new book. that I'm really excited about. In fact, I haven't talked to anybody about this in the world of media. And it's called Your Body in Balance. And what I'm talking about are hormones. And it's because in the same way as people need to know about how foods could affect their cancer risk, foods could affect their heart health, foods affect hormones too. For example, let's say you've got a couple. They're trying to have a baby. And month after month, nothing happens, and they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on fertility treatments. They may not realize that their hormone balance has been changed by the foods that they're eating. Or a woman might have menstrual pain. A lot of women have menstrual pain, but for some it's kind of off the scale, like can't go to work today kind of pain. What if foods made that worse and a diet change could make it better? People have polycystic ovary disease, or they got endometriosis, which is terribly painful, or hormone-related cancers like breast cancer, or in men, prostate cancer. Could foods play roles in all of these? The answer is yes, they do. And whenever I find out about these kinds of things, I get so excited, and I think I want to make sure that people have this knowledge. So this book is called Your Body in Balance.
Your Body in Balance?
Your Body in Balance.
Okay.
As in, let's fix it. And it's the subtitle is The New Science of Foods, Hormones, and Health. And I think it's going to really amaze people.
And hormones, when I think of hormones, there's several different chapters in your life that hormones play a big part. Obviously, in your early development, then I want to say in your puberty and middle, young adult.
Right.
And then as you go, to your middle age, you have another
and then
big shift.
Menopause, people often have symptoms that are all entirely related to hormone shifts. And those are sex hormones, estrogens, and in men, testosterone, but also thyroid hormone. So some people end up hypothyroid. They're gaining weight, their hair is changing, their skin is changing. What's going on with me? Foods play a role in hyper and hypothyroidism. Diabetes.
So what are some of these top foods then that are really affecting and playing with our hormones? Even on a plant-based diet, everybody has confusion around soy, which has phytoestrogen, which is a little different than what's in animal estrogen, but it still has a lot of misconceptions, and people are afraid of, that they would become a soy boy or have breast cancer, I don't know, some sort of issues.
Boobs,
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
There's a lot there to uncover and talk about.
Huge amounts. So you asked two really good questions. One is, what are the foods that are causing the problem? And the other is, what about soy? Let's tackle the soy, because soy gets a not guilty verdict that's going to surprise people. Back in, I think it was 1931 or something like that, people identified what are called isoflavones in soy. The best known one is called genistein. And it looks kind of like a sex hormone. Its chemical structure. It looks sort of like testosterone or estrogen. And people said, well, what if it behaves like an estrogen? Then for a woman, it could cause breast cancer. If a woman had breast cancer, it could aggravate it. If you're a man and you eat tofu or soy milk, you'll get man boobs. And all these kinds of paranoid things.
Yeah, it's like when we look at people that are, if we look over at Asia, for example, where they're consuming a lot of soy, you don't really see those problems whatsoever.
You don't see any of those. Okay, but you're anticipating what we found. So researchers have studied this, and they've looked at let's start with women. Young women who consume a lot of soy. And when I say soy, I mean soy milk, tofu, edamame, miso, those kinds of just everyday foods. And you compare them with people who don't eat much of these foods.
Yep.
And what you find is that as the years go by, the women who consume the most soy don't have a higher risk of breast cancer. They have about 30% less breast cancer.
So then why are doctors telling patients to stay away from soy products, especially, for example, I have a personal experience where my mom has been told that she's estrogen sensitive, and she has been a huge soy lover for most of her adult life, and now she's totally afraid to touch it because her doctor's telling her no.
That needs to change, because I really think those doctors are not reading the literature. And it's not just a question of whether a woman gets breast cancer or not. What if a woman has been treated for breast cancer and her doctor says, I read on the internet that soy is a problem, don't eat any soy. I mean, it's almost like that, where doctors say, I wouldn't have tofu because you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, we want to avoid it. researchers have done at least 5 different studies now.
And are these recent studies, or are
Yes.
these going back, 50 plus years, or?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, they're more recent studies. And you can combine the results in what are called meta-analyses and other nice ways of really getting a good overall sense of what soy does. Here's what we find. That for women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer, those who avoid soy do the worst.
Really?
They have about 30% higher mortality, higher risk of dying of their cancer, compared to women who eat lots of soy.
Wow.
And this is true whether you talk...
And then are they still consuming meat and dairy products, or are they already plant-based and taking soy off the menu?
Okay, if you just look at whether you're consuming soy or not, without regard to whether you are vegetarian, vegan, or whatever, just, I'm including the soy or I'm not, and you hold everything else constant, the soy eaters do the best. The soy avoiders do the worst.
Wow.
So people like your mom, who got well-meaning but ill-informed advice
Yes.
to avoid soy, they have the highest risk. And
I mean, this is really scary.
and let me go further. Men who consume soy do not get man boobs. It's this ridiculous term that came up for men who have what's called gynecomastia. Your breasts are enlarging. Go to a beach in August, and you see men with other shirts on. There are some guys who do have some breast enhancement. Here's the reason why. They've got more fat. They gained weight not from eating tofu. They gained weight from eating cheese and meat and the usual things that fatten up Americans. And as you have more body fat, each fat cell is an estrogen factory. And that's causing the man to have more estrogen in his bloodstream. And so he's got not just more body fat, but he's got more breast tissue. So what caused it wasn't eating soy at all. It has nothing. Now,
thank you for debunking this myth that is
so anyhow,
across.
all of this is in my book called Your Body in Balance. I'm totally excited about it. We've just finished it, and it's coming out in February. And I'm hoping that all those doctors who kind of got it not quite right, and all those patients who are really looking for answers will do well. And I want to tip my hat to Lindsay Nixon, who you might know. She did all the recipes and menus for it, and they're just wonderful.
So your book even includes some tips on what to do in the kitchen.
A lot, because
people always are wondering, okay, what am I going to eat? How do I cook this way?
And I always have to work with people who really are good with that. So my part is the science part. Here's what you need to know. Let's say every month you get cramps that are really killing you. Mm-hmm. Here's how to adjust your diet. And in every case, we talk about real people who have made these changes. We talk about what the research studies show. We give the references, and we say, here's how to do it. Here's how to test it out and see if it works for you. So I'm just really excited about this. It's like what we did with diabetes 10 or 15 years ago. When people thought, diabetes, what can I do? I can take medicine. We said, stop. You can change your diet and lifestyle. If you do it the right way, you might not have diabetes anymore. Or you can really improve it a lot. And that's revolutionized the world of diabetes. And we need to do the same with all these things that bug people from in their day-to-day life.
So then let's talk about men and hormones and what are some adjustments that they can be making, to stay away from having prostate cancer and for having, more vitality in their health.
Lots of men their body chemistry is a bit off kilter. And there's a couple of ways that happens. One is that their testosterone can be too active on the prostate gland and can lead to prostate cancer. If they change their diet in a healthy way, they could do a lot better. And I want to bow to Dean Ornish, who did his wonderful work on reversing heart disease. He then did a study in men who had prostate cancer already and put them on a completely low-fat vegan diet and found that when you look at their blood tests, we use a test called PSA that tracks the prostate. It's called prostate-specific antigen. And if your PSA is going up, that means your cancer is probably progressing. With a vegan diet, and not just any kind of vegan diet, but a really healthy, well-planned, low-fat vegan diet, their PSA levels were actually drifting downward, meaning that they're doing better and better and better and better. So,
and these are patients or subjects that
had cancer already.
Wow. Okay.
With prostate cancer, sometimes you can take your time and you don't operate because it might be growing really slowly. And so
for those people, they really have the chance to slow and bring it back down.
No matter what kind of cancer you have, I would definitely get rid of the animal products. I would keep oils really low, bring in the vegetables and the other really healthful foods, because that enhances the body's defenses. I'll say
So then-
this is another thing about men's body chemistry. The guy goes in to see his doctor and he says, "Doc, you got to give me that little blue pill." And the doctor knows what he's talking about. He's got erectile dysfunction. Huge mistake if the doctor hands him that little blue pill or prescription
I
for
think that's probably one of the most common prescriptions us ladies don't know about that's being passed out.
Very common. But the mistake the doctor makes is to provide the prescription without the warning. The warning is the reason he has erectile dysfunction, it's not because he's got performance anxiety, it's because he's got narrowed arteries.
Yeah, because it's all about the circulation system and blood flow.
That's it. So what you need to do is to say, "Hank, I can give you that little blue pill. That might, that'll be okay for a couple hours. But what you really need to do is to get the meat and the dairy out of your diet, get the eggs out of your diet, because then your arteries have a chance of improving on their own. That can cure the erectile dysfunction in many cases, and what really matters is the guy who's got erectile dysfunction is headed for a heart attack or stroke because he's got arterial disease. You need to cure all of that too."
That's sounds like going to hell in a hand bucket if you're not making some positive changes.
Right, and so, those medicines aren't necessarily terrible in and of themselves, but they're just masking a really serious problem.
So then, what is it then within meat that is turning things on and off, or in dairy that's cranking up the ante, so to speak, of cancers and of all of these clogging arteries? We know about that with the saturated fat, but yeah, how is it really playing with our hormones then?
There's a couple of things. When it comes to meat has a lot of fat in it. Fat tends to raise hormone levels in an unhealthy way.
But then what about avocados and nuts? Those are really fatty.
They are, and they may have some of the same effect. Now, they don't have much saturated fat, that's the bad fat. But if, let's say a woman has really terrible cramps every month, cramps won't kill you, but they might feel like they will. In that case, I would follow a completely vegan diet, and I would keep the avocados out. I would lower all sources of fat. You could do this as an experiment for just one cycle, a couple of cycles in, you'll see. And what many women discover is that being vegan is great, but being low-fat vegan for them gets their body chemistry into a better balance.
Wow. And then, so fat, doesn't matter, animal fat, plant-based fat?
Well, it matters a little bit, but
Okay.
the vegetable fats are not as bad in all respects as the animal fat. But you want to keep them low too. The other part is fiber. There's no fiber in meat at all. There's no, fiber is plant roughage, and fiber helps your body eliminate excess hormones. So you need that. The third thing is back to our enemy cheese, which everybody loves, everybody grew up with. But cheese has hormones in it. It has estrogens that came from the cow. And frankly, they're in all milk products, but in cheese, they're concentrated.
So while we're talking about cheese and dairy, how do you feel about plant-based or, dairy alternatives? We already spoke about soy and estrogen. But another thing I'd like to touch on, especially within nut-based milks, is that there's a lot of emulsifiers such as carrageenan in them. I think I've heard mixed things, that carrageenan is coming from a plant, so it's okay, where in, I believe, France, carrageenan is banned because it's linked to cancer.
There are replacements for milks and for cheeses and for meats and for eggs and all kinds of things. And as a general rule, they're good in the sense that they're always better than what they replace. Okay, so
regardless, it's better than having dairy milk.
Yes. That said, for many people, it should really be a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. So instead of the cow-based cheese, I go to a plant-based cheese. What have I done? There's no hormones in it. That's good. There's no cholesterol in it. That's good. The saturated fat content, probably somewhat lower. All that's good. But it still might have a fair amount of fat and a fair amount of calories, so you might want to then make another step toward more simple foods. And even my friend Miyoko, who makes Miyoko's, Miyoko's...
She's in Trader Joe's, of course.
Delicious,
Yes,
and
so
wonderful
yummy.
person. I mean, her cheeses are a work of art. They're cashew-derived and really wonderful. But even she told me, she said, Neal, this is not something that you should be pigging out on every day. This is a little nibble food, a party kind of food. And I kind of think of them as like methadone for the cheese addict. It's a way to bring you to a healthier way.
Well, that's interesting because, thinking of cheese as just like a special treat is weird because we grow up, cheese goes on the sandwich. We can eat cheese almost every day, but now you're telling me it's really just a special treat.
And not dairy cheese at all.
And no dairy. We're like beautiful nut cheeses now. And they're coming out with here in New York. There's some incredible development going on where, you know, they're getting a rind around them. They're creamy. They taste like blue cheese. Like you're really able to have that experience without having the cow, which is awesome.
They're wonderful. And you know, Miyoko, she covers the cheese. One of them is in volcanic ash. So it's this deep black color. It's just gorgeous. She has another one wrapped in a fig leaf. Or here in New York, tree lime cheese. I don't know if you've had them. Michael Schwartz is a genius. He created this, what's called tree lime cheese. Some of them are soft, some of them are hard. They're all delicious. But everybody would say, this helps you to get away from the cow. And then I do believe that people end up making another step where they say, thank you very much. You helped me break away. And now they're going in a different direction entirely.
Excellent. So that, you know, then that was going to lead me with a lot of the cheese, or, you know, alternative cheese. Sometimes there's quite a lot of like coconut oil and oils in them. And
I'm worried about that, I got to tell you.
You are?
I really think coconut oil is poison. Somebody's got a whole bunch of coconut trees, and they are selling coconut products, but the coconut...
So why did coconut oil have a recent boom where, you know, people think it's good to even like take a spoonful of coconut oil?
I personally think it's all promotion.
Just marketing.
What they will say is, yes, it's very high in saturated fat, which is why if you look at coconut oil, it's like a jar of wax. It's like bacon grease, very high in saturated fat, extremely high. But they'll say, yeah, that's true, but it doesn't raise your cholesterol. Well, the research has been done, and it's very clear that in the same way that butter raises your cholesterol, coconut oil does too.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So, wax your shoes with it. You know, put some in your hair. I would not eat it at all. And so, if you're buying a veggie burger, for example, some of them that have a lot of coconut oil in them, choose a different brand.
Well, thanks for the tip. I had some confusion regarding coconut oil, and I think a lot of people do, because of that, the money that's been going into advertising.
Sorry to tell you, yeah.
Well, that's a bummer, but good news.
Well, it'll bum you out a little bit more. The same is true with palm oil.
Well, palm oil, I just know the environmental effects it's having. Even if it says it's, you know, ethically sourced, it's really impossible right now.
I would avoid coconut oil and palm oil completely, both of them.
Does that mean when you eat coconut, like if you're just eating the fruit, is that okay then, or is it still
Sure, and
saturated?
how much coconut do you eat? You know, it's not that huge amount. When they make the coconut fat, they extract it, concentrate it, and give it to you in this big glob.
Okay.
If you happen to be on vacation in Cancun and you happen to have a chunk of coconut, who cares? But the fat itself, if it's a big part of your diet, it smells trouble.
Okay, smelling trouble, not truffles. So with PCRM,
Yep.
you started off, and now there's, I believe, over 150,000 members and 12,000 doctors. Is this an international group and committee now, or who are the participating members?
Yeah, we have lots and lots of members, and we're very active, and in many states, we're also active with the legislatures. For example, here in New York, there's a bill that we promoted through the legislature to say, okay, in a hospital, instead of waking up after your heart surgery to a breakfast of bacon and eggs, how about having vegan meals served? Better yet, let's say that the hospital actually has to let everybody know that they're there. We wrote that bill, and it passed the state assembly. And then it passed the state senate, and right now, as we speak, it's on Governor Cuomo's desk right next to his blue pen, and we're going to make it the law in New York.
So that means that, because we know because we're based in New York, that NYC Health and Hospitals, which is the public hospitals here system, is now embracing meatless Mondays. So
right.
Now they're promoting taking meat off the menu. But then is milk and dairy is still on the menu.
Yes, and it still would be. This bill wouldn't stop that. But what it would mean is that they must also have completely vegan, dairy-free, meat-free options for people who want them. And they have to go further. They have to really let everybody know they're there. So that let's say I'm a doctor, let's say I'm caring for you, and I say a vegan diet would help you. the hospital has to make our life easy by serving those very foods. So we're excited about that.
That's really great. So where else in the country are some active legislation work going on?
Lots and lots of places. California has been huge. We passed this very bill back in 2018. The AMA, the American Medical Association, based in Chicago, has as their national policy that all hospitals should do this.
Yep.
The American College of Cardiology, same story. There was a bill in Oregon that has kind of been running aground a little bit because I think they really need to reword it and make it clearer. But we're going to see it passed there too. And I think, frankly, within a matter of a couple of years, this will be routine everywhere.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting work that you guys are doing.
Well, everything we do is a partnership. So at the Physicians Committee, we have doctors who have a certain amount of expertise, but we need to partner with people like you and others who have a voice, who can really make some noise and get the word out.
Get the leverage going.
You got it.
Raise the banners.
Exactly.
And when looking at PCRM, there's the nutrition side, but then I noticed a key word that I thought was really interesting, which was ethical science. I just thought science in medicine was an ethical practice.
Yeah.
So why are you breaking it out as specifically ethical science, and what does that mean and encompass?
Let me give you an example. The second year of my medical school, our pharmacology instructor said, okay, everybody, form groups because next week is dog lab. And the way we were going to study pharmacology was to take a live dog.
And pharmacology is the study of pharmaceuticals?
Exactly.
And the effects on
the body.
On the body.
So we were going to take a dog. Every group of 4 to 6 students would take a dog. Huge room, dogs all over on the table. You tape the dog down and you inject epinephrine, and then you write down epinephrine makes the heart go faster. Then you inject propranolol, makes the heart go slower. And you write all these things down, and then at the end of the afternoon, after all these things, your dog is in a trash bag outside the room. And 2 things died that day. All those dogs died, but something died in the medical student, and that was the feeling that life has to be protected. And when the instructor told me that this was happening next week and form your groups, I said, excuse me, I'm not doing that.
So then what is the alternative then? Because maybe if we take animal testing away, then are we just injecting things on humans and playing with people? Like, whose life is worth more in this?
Well, first of all, I should say that animals are used in really 3 big areas in science. One is education, which is what I was just describing. Mm-hmm. It starts with dissection in high school, and then it goes through the use of...
I couldn't even cut my worm open in high school.
Well, that's because you have a heart and you've got a brain that could teach you better ways of doing it. So the education is one. Testing is another, like, is this drug or this floor wax, is it safe? Does it do what you want it to do? And then the third thing is medical research per se, like trying to understand how diabetes forms in the body. So education, testing, and research are areas where animals are used. So I refused to do my dog lab, and I didn't get fired from medical school. There are better ways of learning what epinephrine and propranolol will do. And in fact, we have managed to eliminate those dog labs, and in fact, all use of animals from every medical school in the United States and Canada.
Really?
So now, if you get an MD degree or a DO degree at any medical school in the US or Canada, nobody even offered you an animal lab.
So what is the replacement for that? How are students getting that hands-on experience of really understanding the effects of...
Well, first of all, it's not too challenging to know what epinephrine does. You read about it in a book, you can put it to work, and when you're in the clinics, you use these various medicines and you see their effects. If it's surgery, you do need to learn surgery, you need manual skills, so the student starts out learning to suture. And they take a needle and they're working on styrofoam or an orange or something. They learn to tie knots. And they're not doing anything else, they're just tying knots. And then, next step, they're in the operating room, and the doctor, the surgeon will say, okay, you can sew up this person. Let me see your needle skills. I want to be sure you can do it now. You can sew up on their an uncosmetic spot. Yep. Okay, and they do that pretty well. And then they get good at it, and they're not going to make an incision. They're not doing anything else. They're just sewing up. And then eventually they learn all the other pieces of it, and they get better and better. Now, sometimes you want to do other things. You want to work on simulators. In some cases, we even do cadaver surgery on people where they donated their body for use after they died. There's many ways to do this. And I have to say, in testing and in research, the non-animal methods are exploding.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think technology is now really opening up the door to so many different options, from using virtual reality to now, I think robotics is really taking a big step into surgery. And then when it comes to, the animal testing side of things, it's been proven for pesticides and things like that, which they don't even provide correct results, and the FDA has acknowledged that animal testing doesn't provide the right results.
We have been working with the government, and we hold classes for government regulators on how to move away from animal tests to better tests. Because what's the point of poisoning animals and killing them? Well, first of all, it's cruel no matter what. But if it's giving you results that don't apply to human beings, you're really hurting things. With regard to research...
It also just sounds like wasted time then.
A lot of wasted time, wasted money, and frankly, it's cruel, and we need to get rid of it. These new organs on a chip are really exciting. It's a chip. It's a tiny little chip, but you could put lung cells in it. You could put liver cells. You could put digestive tract cells. You can see how various compounds affect human cells. So you're not putting them into
This is
a
really
rat or
new breakthrough research, I believe.
It's been building up for many, many years, but it has just now become so mature, and it allows us to study the human body in ways that we never could have before. And it's the most exciting area. And if you say, no, you can't do any of that, you got to take that frog or that pig and you got to work on them, that's just really backward science in my view.
So that's ethical science, is really removing the animals from the laboratories and
working in a smarter, more ethical way.
Excellent. So with your background in that you started off with psychiatry, I'm really curious then, how does nutrition play a role in our mental health? Because we are hooked on many different drugs and prescriptions that are supposed to be treating, anxiety and depression. And how does nutrition play a role in that?
Yeah.
And does the American diet exacerbate some of these issues?
I think the American diet does exacerbate mood issues. And I should say that depression isn't just, I'm having a rough day. Depression is, when it's serious, when it's major depressive disorder, it's as if somebody pulled the plug on your brain function and things just descend. And it can be life-threatening, and people can suicide. Antidepressants have a role, but in many cases they don't work. They always have a lot of side effects too. So a number of years ago, we were doing a research study, and the study was actually with the insurance company Geico. Because they made car insurance. The reason we worked with Geico is that they were right near our office. They have 2,500 employees, and they wanted to test what would a vegan diet do for their employees. So we brought in a whole bunch of...
Really?
Yeah. We've done 2 studies with Geico now, and in 10 different cities in the U.S. But anyway, the focus of it was to help them lose weight, to tackle diabetes. But in the course of doing these studies, we also tracked mood with careful questionnaires. And what we noticed was that, curiously enough, not only were people losing weight, but their mood was improving. Specifically, depression was lifting, anxiety was reduced, and absenteeism was improved. So
what is absenteeism?
You call in sick.
Okay.
Hey, boss, I can't get out of bed. I'm just not going to.
Okay, I was picturing my soul just kind of left me, but no, I'm calling in sick. I'm staying home. I feel like crap.
But all these improve. And then other researchers have done similar things where they've taken this kind of diet and they've applied it to people who have mood disorders. It seems to work. We need more help. But the study, we need more research to help us understand this. But I really think that what especially needs to be studied is a dietary intervention of a completely plant-based diet coupled with an exercise intervention where you lace up your sneakers. Now, I don't want to do this today. Yeah, we're going to do it. And we're going to do it as a group, and to see if over time that could rival the effect of medication without the dangerous side effects.
So what we're looking forward to is hopefully some great studies of exercise with the whole food plant-based diet.
I think so. And we really need to do this for so many aspects of health. And so I want to thank you for allowing me to talk with all of your viewers about how important all this is. And I want to underscore what I said earlier, that our job is to do the science, but people who can get this word out, and everybody has a role to play in that. They might have their own, people watching this might have their own social network, and they can say, I just saw this amazing broadcast. Let's spread the word. That's what really gets things done.
Well, excellent. I really appreciate you taking a little small time out of your schedule to speak with us and really share the awesomeness behind a plant-based diet and some of the top things to really look out for when considering eating meat or dairy. But I want to end with one fun question.
Okay.
You love music, and I think a lot of people might not know that. And you are a musician yourself and have been in bands. So I'm wondering, do you ever incorporate knowledge and the studies and what you're doing into a musical form that then makes people remember information better?
Oh, that's fun. I was a musician before I was a doctor. When I was a little kid, my parents had this idea that to be a civilized human being, you had to play at least 2 instruments, you had to study foreign language, all this kind of stuff.
Well-rounded, being well-rounded.
I think they wanted to get the heck out of Fargo. I don't know what it was. Anyway, so I've always been involved in music. But my current band is called Carbon Works.
Carbon Works?
Yeah, like we're made of carbon, and these are our works. And in fact, if you go to YouTube and just look up Carbon Works music, you'll see zillions of videos of our stuff. And the musicians, I want to say, they're great people. They're really cool. And some of them, for anybody who has a heart for animals, you'll see some animal-oriented things there too, and lots of other stuff. So if I can't reach you through your brain, we're going to reach you through your heart.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
Really nice to speak with you and meet you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I could keep on talking
Oh,
forever.
good. Thanks.